Hello and welcome to the Hellraiser blog. Please, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed today's blog, hit the subscribe button. We love growing the Hellraiser boxing YouTube family. So today's blog is about the breakdown in the negotiations from Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury. Big fight, a lot of interest to me. Anthony Joshua from Watford, which is near my hometown, against Tyson Fury. Joshua actually fought one of my guys on his way up, Rafael Zambano, top 10 world rated heavyweight, and Tyson Fury, I made his first ever pro fight. So I've been watching these guys from before their first ever pro fight. I've had a big interest in both of them, and their fight was announced multiple times as all being done and gonna happen, and then didn't happen. So where did it all go wrong? Okay, so there's a lot of bullshit from all sides. I think there's a lot of garbage being flying around. I mean, the money, it seemed like every week when there's a new announcement, the wages that the boxers were getting was going up. It's like, oh, we told them, like, 20 million last week, but we've got to get them excited again. We'll say 30 million this week, and it's going up. Then when the fight's not happening, Eddie Hearn was saying, oh, well, Tyson Fury's his team's just cost him $60 million, but before it was 100, And all these contracts anyway, they'd have confidentiality clauses, which basically means that no one can divulge the information that's enclosed in the contract, which means they're at liberty to completely lie and say what they want. And if they think it's going to generate more likes, more shares on social media, they would do it because that's going to generate more sales. And I've got to say, I had a feeling that it sounds like that might have been the case, because suddenly the fight's off and then it's, oh, they're only getting 60 million anyway, not 100 that we were talking about like a week ago. Where did that big chunk of money, $40 million, just disappear to? Okay, so I did tire of the announcements of the fight being made. The first announcement I saw personally was Tyson Fury. It was like Anthony Joshua had just done this sort of speech for Black Lives Matter, and the next, sort of following that, the next day there was an absolute uproar. People were calling Joshua a racist. I've got to say, I've met Joshua plenty of times. I guess you don't actually know if someone's a racist or not, but he never struck me as being a racist. He's been very warm to me, for what that's worth. I just never saw, oh, he sort of doesn't like me because I'm white. I don't think that he's a racist. But okay, so there was uproar because he'd read a speech, and Joshua's, I think he said afterwards that I didn't write that speech, someone just put it in my hand and I read it. I mean, I'm sure he learned a few lessons if that was the case, because in his position he definitely can't afford to just be reading out bits of paper that sound like speeches that he's written. But anyway, so it was just as all that was kicking off, suddenly Tyson Fury, it was a clip on Instagram, and he was saying, oh, just been on the phone to Daniel Kinahan, which I would imagine a few people would have ruffled a few feathers, because Daniel Kinahan was part of MTK. Supposedly now he's not anymore, but that they were, involved in this sort of criminal activity, would have raised a few eyebrows certainly. But then it took the attention. All of these different details took the attention away from the fact that people just 2 days before were saying, oh, well, Joshua's a racist, I'll never buy any of his fights again, I'm not going to sort of follow Joshua. And that'd be a real shame, because here we've got like a brilliant fight that will grasp the world's attention. I'm sure when it happens, there's I mean, me personally, I'm a boxing obsessive, but I think a lot of people, they just wouldn't be sat at home thinking, oh, I'm not watching that because I think he's a racist and I think he's involved with some naughty people. I just think people want to see a brilliant fight and they will watch it. So why did the fight fall apart? I will say that there's probably reasons on both sides where people were getting miffed, we say, with each other. Let's keep it polite. Hellraiser blog is a family channel after all. The big worry I'd have if I was Eddie Hearn is that apparently Joshua's got one fight left on his contract with Matchroom, and if I was Frank Warren or Bob Arum representing Wilder right now, and controlling, representing Fury right now, I would be going to Joshua saying, look, you've got one fight left with Matchroom, have your fight, we'll find a reason to stall the fight, you're still going to have that fight, you go and have a fight with Matchroom, that's your last fight on their deal, and then we can cut Eddie out of this. Call me a cynic for saying maybe I'm wrong. It'd be nice if I was wrong, because it'd show a bit of loyalty in boxing, which is quite rare you come across that. But if I was in that position of the other camp, I would be going to Joshua and saying, look, we can cut Eddie out of this. You can be AJ Promotions. You can go and represent yourself. And this big cake that we're all taking slices from, we'll just eliminate their slice. And you know, once your contract is over, you're free to do what you want. We can go and negotiate on our own terms. Eddie has left Sky, meaning that Sky, I'm sure, would push the boat out, because they are the biggest pay-per-view seller in the UK. They are it's easy to understand why. A huge mountain of money gets generated by them. They will almost certainly push the boat out to do a deal with Joshua. Now, like I say, if I was representing someone on the other side, that's exactly what I would be doing. So I think Eddie, he must have that in the back of his mind. As soon as that fight sort of fell apart, that must have dawned on him. Am I getting done here? Or have I already been done? Eddie, for his part, seemed to... I saw an interview with him where he's saying, oh, well, I spoke to Bob, and Bob told me it's all sort... Right, Bob Arum, his most famous quote is, yesterday I was lying, but today I'm telling the truth. Right, you believe that guy, Eddie. I don't follow. I don't get that. Bob Arum, he's actually friends with one of my uncles. Nice enough guy. Would I believe him in that kind of a situation? For very obvious reasons, no, I wouldn't. And by Bob saying that, this is what I think Bob's saying. Bob is saying, in the ducking and diving, in the chicanery of boxing negotiations, just because I said something doesn't mean that it's the truth. I'm capable of lying. I'm a liar. That's what you're saying. Yesterday I was lying means basically I'm a liar. And if Eddie just took him purely on his word for that, this is one thing with Eddie, is that, look, Eddie didn't build a tiny business and gradually escalate it, and it became... Eddie came in like there. He came in at the top. And I think if he had have had more seasoning, if you like, he might not have blindly believed, because Bob says it's sorted, it's sorted. I think in boxing you become very cynical of experience, you become very paranoid and cautious of what people actually mean when they say, because a lot of the time it's to make you believe a certain thing and not always to actually be able to know what the truth is. Anyway, so they went to arbitration, and look, another big alarm bell for me would be Wilder asking for apparently he asked for $20 million step aside. Right, if a fighter says he wants $20 million step aside money, Liz, just take it from me. Look, I've not dealt with Wilder. I've met him actually, he seems a good guy, but I've not dealt with fighters who are getting paid $20 million step aside money. But just from my experience in boxing, a fighter who asks for that doesn't want the fight. In fact, he doesn't want the step aside money, he wants the fight. So my feeling then would be, Wilder isn't going to go away. He knows we're not going to give him $20 million step aside money, which basically means he's saying, I want the fight. You can't do your deal without me. At that point, you have to, I think you have to ask for, like some information. You have to see like a copy of what the contract is before you go forward. Certainly before you announce the fight. You can only announce, because the thing is, when you announce a fight, you put a gun to your head. Because, and even on a small scale, like if I've got a guy I'm bringing in from Africa or from Eastern Europe or from the continent somewhere or America, there's like an order, and the order isn't you announce the fight before you've signed it. It just isn't, even on a small one, because even the smallest manager in the smallest little country, if he sees that you're announcing the fight and you're doing press releases and you're pushing this sort of agenda that it's all done, when it isn't, what do you do then? Please sir, can I have some more? Much to Eddie's dismay, I would imagine, and I would have thought that he would have been through that previously, but it seems like here somehow he's allowed himself to get sucked in, and I can't believe that it's something that they didn't realise. I mean, no, look, boxing people, business wise, they're calculating. The manager's job is to do that, and I don't think you can blame like Shelley Finkel. In fact, calling Shelley Finkel, who's a very respected guy in the business, you know, he's managed Mike Tyson, he's managed Evander Holyfield, he's worked with all these guys, to call him like Shirley Winkle. Shelley Finkel would just laugh at that, not in a nice way. He'd be thinking, have your day in the sun, enjoy it, because I'm going to cause you a lot of problems. I mean, you know, and Shelley Finkel is a manager. If you're managing a fighter, I've managed probably like 500 fighters. The promoters will, some of them, they will sort of try and build this artificial friendship, because they think that way you'll go easy on them in the negotiations. And there are managers who gladly lap that up. Oh, Eddie, yes, Eddie, you know, I love you, Eddie, you love me. I've always found it works a lot better to be polite, but stay at a distance. Don't get sucked into this idea that we're best mates, because there's going to come a time, in probably multiple times, and I've had promoters like shouting down the phone, why are you ruining my show, especially inexperienced ones. And it's nothing personal, it's not something you go out of your way to do, but the thing is, if you've got a fighter, the fighter isn't paying you because he's thinking, oh, I've got too much money and I'd like to distribute some of that to a manager somewhere, because that's what people do. They want you, and they won't employ you, they won't continue their contract with you, they won't go around telling other people, oh, sign with him, he did a good job for me, unless you go that mile. And you have to be able to stand in front of a promoter, and I've done it to Eddie Hearn and I've done it to Frank Warren, and you've got to do it to do your job. And I'm sure that both Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren, they don't go to bed at night thinking, oh, I hate Mickey Helliet. They understand, right, this is business, you know, it's a tug of war. He's paid to pull that way and I'm pulling this way. And they probably have more respect, I would imagine, for you if you behave like that anyway. If you're one of these sort of people that just going to sort of kowtow, yeah, they love that because it means that they can rip you off. It means they can make more money from you. But rather than you negotiating as good a deal, because there's a saying, isn't there? You don't get what's fair, you get what you negotiate. And in boxing, that's a massive difference sometimes. You know, because a promoter, what he thinks fair, in many cases, have peanuts. And I've had it with lots of big promoters where they've expected me to take peanuts, and they're surprised. They think, who's this little guy? You know, runs shows at York Hall, you know, with no regular TV deal. He just has to do what he's told. But it's nice when you say, no, my friend. There are systems in place, purse bids, other TV stations, other promoters you can do co-promotes with, that strengthen your position, put you in a place where you can actually get the best deal. And this is what I think's happening with Shelley Finkel. He's just laughing at all this, sort of calling him Shirley Winkle and making him sound like he's some sort of buffoon. Listen, he's far from a buffoon. I've never met him, but I can say I'm 100% certain of that. You can see from the things he says and the people he's worked with and the results he's achieved so far. Shelley Finkel would have just laughed at all these things that Eddie said and used it to fuel, I would say, what he wanted to do in the first place, which was just get as much money for himself and for Wilder as he possibly could, and that's what he's done. And if that means going along with this nonsense that they're announcing fights when they know that the fight isn't going to happen, let them do it. Especially when he's taking the mickey out of me, because when the day comes, that's when I'll be laughing. When I go and bank my check, that's when I can then look back at it and smile while Eddie's pulling his hair out. And I mean, I think, look, Eddie antagonising Shelley Finkel, I don't think, you don't need to be his best mate, far from it, but you don't need to be antagonising him like that, because Shelley Finkel is actually in a position where Eddie, certainly for this sort of situation happening, has to look at him like that, not look down. It's not like some little man that's just going to go away if I tell him to. Look, he stood his ground, and really you'd say at the moment Shelley's winning. Deontay Wilder's winning, not Eddie. Eddie's taken a bit of an arse kicking here, and look, it's not a given that AJ will beat Usyk. I mean, I've not been that impressed with Usyk as a heavyweight. I thought he was very, very good as a cruiser. I thought he was brilliant as a cruiser. I can't really speak well enough about Usyk as a cruiser, but big difference between cruiserweight and heavyweight. Talking like a lot of weight to put on now. Modern heavyweights, big guys, much better than the cruiserweight 40 stone full cruiserweight limit. There's a lot of things that need to be sorted out for the eventual AJ Fury fight. I mean, look, DAZN now are big players in the game, but then you've also got BT Sport, who I'm sure will have some sort of stake in Fury, and it's all going to have to be negotiated. What I'd like to see is it be negotiated, and then it's just announced that it actually is done. Not all these people every week saying, "Oh, now it's done, and it's for more money than we announced last week." But it's done. It's not done. Right, I want to see it when it actually is done, and when there's no arbitration and there's no caveats that need to be taken care of. And also where we get this situation where it's this many million and it's this man. I'm made sure that we're getting it. Can you imagine Mickey Duff? Mickey Duff, who was like the top promoter in the UK for a long time. I knew Mickey very well. Mickey never would have said, BBC's given me this amount and this is the deal. No way. He'd have hidden that. He'd have kept that buried. Why? Because he doesn't want... Right, put yourself in Shelley Finkel's shoes, or Deontay Wilder, or Tyson Fury, or the whole situation becomes vastly more problematic when you've got people announcing, "Oh, DAZN's budget, it's much bigger than everyone else's." Because as a manager, you think, "Oh, great, you've got more money, have you? Okay, so now we're really gonna go to town on you." And look, that fight's not done, which means they've still got to negotiate it, which means that now everyone knows supposedly that DAZN have got all these billions of pounds. Okay, so we're going to get as much of that as we can, and we're going to hold them to ransom completely, and if they don't pay it, we'll go elsewhere. And DAZN, and I just think you create a rod for your own back by talking about the money too much and the deal and the how special the deal is, because now we've got a situation where you think of DAZN, you think of bazillions, and you think of how can I get that money out of their account into my own. Barry Hearn saying within literally weeks of Eddie being announced or getting his promoter's license, he's the best promoter in the world, or in the country. I can't remember which one it was, but he wasn't either at that point. Certainly now I'd say he's certainly the best in the UK. But put yourself in Frank Warren's shoes, hearing that. Frank Warren, who has done it the hard way, who's built that business, he like some young guy and the dad saying, "Yeah, he's the best." He probably felt quite insulted by that. So what the relevance of that to this is that, okay, now you can't expect Frank just to dance to your tune because you want him to. Frank's probably relishing the environment, and you know, Frank's main motivation will be, how can we get as much money as possible from this deal for Tyson Fury, and for, you know, himself will earn from that. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting. There'll be other blogs to follow shortly to do with the situation with Usyk. Well, he's a brilliant fighter, but what's going to happen with him? Also be interesting to see, you know, that AJ has this fight. Does he stay with Matchroom? Does he stay with Sky? What happens? Anyway, guys, thank you for watching the blog. If you enjoyed watching it, please hit the like and subscribe buttons, and I'll see you again very soon on the Hellraiser blog. Thanks for watching, guys. See you then.